The Ric Flair Show.
My name's Ric Flair.
Woo! Woo! To be the man, you gotta beat the man. And I'm saying, woo! Right here, I'm the man.
The 16-time world champion.
Woo! Back behind the mic and telling it like it is.
Woo!
If you're not carrying the big gold, you're second best no matter what you tell yourself.
I'm the best.
Y'all playing catch-up ball to the nature boy.
And now, your hosts of The Ric Flair Show, Ric Flair and Conrad Thompson.
Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ric Flair, the nature boy, 16 times your world champion, along with my legendary co-host, Conrad, by God, Thompson. Multi-millionaire, entrepreneur, owner of vast insurance companies, building a empire second to none in the mortgage business. Conrad, welcome to the Ric Flair Show today. Hello, everybody out there. We're live. Woo!
Man, I'm excited to be here. We've got an awesome show today. We've got one of our most requested guests of all time, Mr. Ken Patera, on the other side of this segment. How much are you looking forward to catching up with Ken today, Rick?
Well, it's funny. I just saw him less than a year ago in San Diego, and for some reason we didn't trade numbers. I'm dying to catch up with him. I mean, it's funny. There's some people in your life that you think about almost every day from lifetime experiences, and God only knows. Ken and I had we spent a lot of time together, and the whole story, how we met and all that, which we'll discuss, is phenomenal. And plus the unfortunate situation where he had to go to jail on some ridiculous charge, which I now will use that word ridiculous. Just some political deal that anyway, took away a lot of his career and a lot of his life. So, but he's back on top. He's rolling, making a lot of money, and he's in good health. And considering what he put his body through while he was Olympic training and all that, which he'll discuss, I think he's got 2 hips and a knee and a shoulder replacement. So, wow. But he still looks good. His spirits are good, and he just $1 million guy.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing. I know you guys were roommates back in the day. I'm sure there's lots of great stories there. But first, let's get into the Figure 4 top stories brought to you by the RicFlair.com online store with brand new items like koozies, bottle openers, hats, money clips, T-shirts, and more. Be sure to check out RicFlair.com and be sure to click the online store at the top of the page. They've even got a Ric Flair for President hat. You know you need that. So go ahead.
For sure.
Check it out right now, RicFlair.com. All right, let's get into it, Rick. You have really upset the internet in our very first story that we have to cover right away. A cruiserweight won't main event the WrestleMania event. Where you at, Rick? Do you regret saying it? You've gotten lots of backlash this past week. Lots of people online are coming after you with pitchforks.
First of all, it wasn't meant to hurt. I didn't wrestle, as I told you when we discussed this. I didn't main event at WrestleMania, okay?
Right.
And I had a pretty good career. So, I certainly wasn't meant with any malice. It was just an opinion. But I will tell you something. Whatever website that was that came out, that they listed the 10 cruiserweights that have beaten me, and which is all true. I never denied getting beat by cruiserweight guys. But when you start calling Shawn Michaels a cruiserweight, you better be on alert, man, because you will be picking your teeth up when he sees you. I don't think anybody ever thinks of Shawn Michaels as being a cruiserweight. How about you?
Well, I wouldn't have automatically assumed that he was a cruiserweight. I think people are really starting to blur the lines a little bit. And what I mean is there's a build weight in wrestling. Guys say they're 7 foot tall and they're really not 7 foot tall. And guys say they're 400 pounds and they're really not 400 pounds. Well, I think a lot of that happens in wrestling. So guys, started to really attack you over the weekend saying, what about, Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit and Daniel Bryan and Seth Rollins and Shawn Michaels. All of those guys were billed at more than what a cruiserweight is now. And then lots of people made the argument, I don't know if you saw this, that at the time those guys were wrestling, they were in what the WWE defined a cruiserweight weight class, because it used to be 225 pounds. Now it's 205 pounds. None of that matters, though. Finn Balor is 190 pounds. And here's my takeaway from last week, Rick. I feel like you were looking out for your buddy Roman. I don't know that everybody who listens to the podcast really understands. You have a great personal relationship with Roman. I think you guys got close on a European tour a few years ago. And so now you consider him a friend. So whenever you talk about Roman Reigns, you're not so much talking about the character we see on TV as you are your good friend.
Exactly. And it was no more than just an opinion. I mean, trust me, it was never meant with any malice towards Finn Balor. She's got a lot of talent. I said, I don't know what more you can say. Good looking, great body, tremendous talent, okay? I repeat. So anybody that was offended, I certainly want to apologize. My God.
So if you think he's a great performer and good looking and in good shape and talented, why do you hate him so much?
I don't hate him. Why are you saying that? Jesus Christ. I just saw him on Monday. I shook his hand. I don't hate him. I like him.
But he'll definitely never main event, right? Because he's too little. Isn't that what you said?
No, but I mean, here's hypothetical again. So you're trying to stir this up, which is what you do. But what I'm saying is that you look at the last 5 or 6 main events at WrestleMania, okay? And I know Daniel Bryan was in one of them. And he's a phenomenal player with a phenomenal following. Exactly, right?
Right.
But, I mean, I don't see those guys. I don't see those guys wrestling Brock Lesnar. I mean, that's just where it is. I don't see Daniel Bryan wrestling Brock Lesnar. I wouldn't see Finn Balor. I wouldn't see a lot of people that are really good wrestlers wrestling Brock Lesnar, okay? Triple H is 255 pounds. Orton, I mean, it's just a difference. And I think that, just like I said about boxing, when Muhammad Ali was the champion, there was no other divisions. I mean, of course there were, and there were some fabulous boxers, but the heavyweight champion was Muhammad Ali, and that's the only thing he talked about. And when he passed away, a month and a half ago, I mean, the recognition that he got, I mean, the NBA finals came to a standstill to honor and recognize Muhammad Ali. I've never seen that for any other boxer.
So
Have you?
No, I haven't. I want to ask about this cruiserweight thing again, though, because I do want to get some clarification. I feel like a lot of people read what they thought happened on the podcast rather than actually listening to what you said. And one of my questions, I guess, is, it's not, you're not saying that weight is the only indicator. I mean, good Lord, if that was the case, then every year it would be Mark Henry and Big Show in the main event.
Of course not. No, of course not. I'm just saying that it's, number one, it takes a long time to build a brand.
Right.
Let's throw that word in the equation too, okay? So regardless of when Finn Balor or anybody else, of all the new guys came up, by the way, those 2 kids, they debuted last night on SmackDown, were fabulous. The amateur wrestlers, they were fabulous.
Yeah, Reddy, Willing, and Gable.
Yeah. But I mean, just they just are fabulous and phenomenal athletes. So I want to give them a shout out. But I just don't. It's not nothing to do with weight. Gosh, it takes time to build a brand. I mean, Randy Orton has built a brand, but it's been there 10, 15 years. John Cena's built a brand. Right now, Seth and Roman and Dean Ambrose are in the process of building a brand.
And they've been there for years.
It takes time.
It's worth mentioning. They've been there on television for years. And I think, one of the things, and I know I'm probably not supposed to be speaking for you here, but I think it's also fair to say that part of what you meant when you said, I just don't see a main eventing a WrestleMania, is based on the idea that only 2 guys get that spot every year. I mean, here we are now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, thank God you're thinking this out. It's insanity, my God. I mean, I think it's really tragic that the internet will seize the opportunity, and just the way they are. It's like in the old days, man, when it was, what was it, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, was that the #1 magazine, right, man? Yeah. If I wasn't the most hated #1, I was really mad. How dumb was I? And if Hogan wasn't most popular, he was mad. The ratings back then.
Sure.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm making a joke. I'm being facetious. I didn't even look at that stuff. I mean, and I probably have more Pro Wrestling Illustrated covers than anybody alive. But guys, it's a work. Hello. It's a work, everybody. It's a work.
It's worth mentioning. It's not up to the fans. It's not up to me. It's not up to you. Who main events WrestleMania is up to who, Ric Flair? Who decides that?
Well, it's up to the writing team, but it's ultimately up to Vince McMahon.
There you go. Vince McMahon is the guy who's going to pick your main event. It has nothing to do with what we say on this podcast, but let's piss everybody off one good time here, Rick. Do you think the women will ever headline a WrestleMania?
Well, now that's a sensitive issue because I think my daughter is good enough to. But that, I don't know about a main event at WrestleMania, but I think they'll main event a pay-per-view in the future.
I like the way you answered that. Let's lighten the mood.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm fine. I'll talk about them all day long. I mean, it's hard to say that match that she and Sasha had a week ago is not probably the greatest female match or women's match ever on TV that I've ever seen.
No, I would agree with that.
And I've been around a long time.
Yeah, 102 years, you said last week.
Yeah, 102 years, yeah. And so just to clarify, I want all the cruiserweights to like me again. I mean, it's funny. Guys like Dean Malenko and the guys I see all the time, do you think they were offended by anything I said?
No.
Gee, I just saw Dean Monday. He didn't bring it up.
No.
First thing he said, how you doing? I said, how are you doing? I mean, you can go down that whole list. Rey Mysterio. Ray's got my number. He wasn't calling me.
Right.
And yes, Rey Mysterio has beaten me, as has Dean, as did Benoit. I mean, the list that they put out there, as did Shawn. But I don't think Shawn Michaels would ever consider himself a cruiserweight. I'm going to stand on that one. I almost wanted to call him and tell him somebody said that.
I love it. I love it.
We could get him back for another podcast.
Well, hey, since we're already in the heat territory, how would you compare Finn Balor and Shawn Michaels?
Oh, geez, don't put me in that spot. It's not even fair.
Okay.
It's not a fair question.
Let's go to story number 2. Let's
I
lighten the
already
mood.
said that. I had to say this to get him on the show. Shawn Michaels is the greatest wrestler of all time. Not just the greatest in-ring performer, the greatest wrestler of all time. And, man, that hurt, but I said it.
I love it.
And basically, I meant it. So you can't compare that. You can't make that comparison.
All right, let's have a little fun here. Let's lighten the mood. Was Charlotte's mom a one-night stand like Sasha said on Monday Night Raw?
Charlotte's mom a one-night stand. You got to be kidding me. Please, you know what the funny thing about life is? You make one mistake and those raps follow you around forever. It's
Wait. Are you saying you had one night stand? Why are you lying to our listeners right now?
Because I can.
Okay. All right. Well, I like it.
Hey, you know the first rule of getting busted, you never admit to it. They put the heat lamp on you, they drag you through, they don't talk to you for a month. They try to shut down your checking account, you just never admit it. You could be caught in the act, you won't say anything.
Hey, in that same...
That's not me.
I love it. It wasn't me.
My case now, I just claim dementia. What are you doing? I don't know.
Oh, my gosh. Hey, Jericho asked on Monday, so I think you should answer. Who did Ric Flair ever beat?
You know, that's the truth. Only 16 guys. Big Finn smile. I never beat anybody.
That's hilarious.
I mean, and they were few and far between.
Let's go to story number 3. Brock Lesnar returns to WWE TV. What did you think? Were you pleased with the way he was presented? Would you have addressed the UFC at all?
No, I wouldn't. I thought it was great. I mean, as we talk about, Paul did a phenomenal interview for him, and he just stands there and just looks like he's going to kill everybody in the building. It's great. And that's why, and by the way, the crowd was all over him. Nobody was chanting anything that was derogatory.
Right.
They respect him. They know he's a man, and he is a special athlete. And I will say this: I don't know what these people think that anything, these enhancement things, if it's legit and if it's even true, can do to make you a Brock Lesnar. Trust me, they can't. I'd be at the store right now.
How would
please give me the Brock Lesnar medicine.
I love it. I love it. Hey, look, real quick before we get to our last story, how would you book SummerSlam? If you've done your fair share of booking in the day. If you were booking SummerSlam, you've got Brock Lesnar, you've got Randy Orton. What would be your finish for that?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Believe me, I wish I could give you an educated guess. That's a coin toss. But I can tell you this: they're going to have a hell of a match.
I have no doubt about that.
They have a lot of respect for each other. They've known each other a long time, and I think that where at first everybody thought that that Randy had kind of taken time off and wanted to get away from it. And I'm looking for this to be. I think Randy's happy, back in the groove, and I'm looking to this to be a phenomenal part of the event. It won't be as good as Charlotte and Sasha, but I'm just kidding.
Will it be as good as Finn Balor's match?
I hope so. How about that? Leave me alone, please.
All right.
Yeah, let me tell you something too. I'm telling you right now, because Seth Rollins can wrestle that style. That's Finn Balor and Seth Rollins will tear it down.
Oh, I have no doubt.
Yeah, because Seth is really good at that. I mean, Seth can wrestle. He's got as much athleticism, but as much athletic ability as Ashley does. Charlotte. And, from trampolines when he was a kid and all that. And I've seen him do some things that are incredible. He's a lot stronger than you give him credit for, too. That when he rolled through, I can't remember, maybe before he got hurt, that roll through where he picked John Cena up, remember?
Yep.
Off the top rope.
Yep.
I didn't even think he was capable of being that strong, but he is. So it's going to be a great card. I mean, the people that are anticipating this is a WrestleMania card. And
it really is.
I think it's AJ and John now. That'll be great. I mean, that AJ Styles is unbelievable. They forgot about him. He beat me, too. How could you leave AJ's name off the list?
All right, let's get out of here. Our very last story, and this is one that I know is near and dear to your heart, Rick. We're just a few days past the 1-year anniversary of Roddy Piper passing away. I wanted to take just a minute or two here to let you kind of share some of your favorite memories about Piper the performer, or maybe even Piper the man.
Well, I don't think that I have to tell anybody how great a performer he was and how entertaining he was and how hard he worked every night. As a person and as a man, guys like me and Roddy are always going to have that rap. Whereas a guy like Dusty Rhodes had a lot of fun, but Dusty would never, he never was as wild as Roddy and I, let's put it like that. So he was a fabulous guy to travel with. He was a fabulous person. But what people don't know about him is that he kept his family hidden, and they are the most beautiful family in the world. At the service, you forget when you don't see him all the time.
Right.
I mean, he put a lot of time, which nobody probably was aware of. You wouldn't think of it. Maybe in the last couple of years you would, but I mean, he had a phenomenal family, and he has a phenomenal family, and they're just beautiful. And the service was very nice. The WWE, as I acknowledged at the Hall of Fame this year, did a great job with both he and Dusty. It was a long year, guys. I mean, for me personally, to see Roddy and then The Dream and then Jack Mulligan, it was a lot in the last year, in the last 12 months. So, all great guys.
Well, that concludes our top 4 stories. Let's go ahead and end on a high note before we get to Ken Patera. Before we get to that interview, let's do something fun here, Rick. For the last 2 episodes, we've asked folks to subscribe to the show, screenshot it, and then post it using hashtag Ric Flair Show. And we were doing this to give away an autographed Big Gold Belt, and today is the day. We finally have a winner, and his name is Matt Babb from Cleveland.
Congratulations. Most people are so ungrateful.
Matt, we're going to message you directly to get your address, and your belt is on the way tomorrow. Be sure to post a picture of your new autographed Big Gold Belt on social media and tag us in it. Congrats, man, and be sure to use hashtag Ric Flair Show. Now, let's do this again, though, Rick. We had such a great reaction with that. We want to give away something else, and this time we're actually going to give away your original NWA belt. We did the big gold belt last time. They call this one the Domed Globe. But you've told me that's your favorite world title, isn't that right?
It is, because at the time it was the most prestigious. The NWA was the governing body that I think was the most recognized in wrestling for a long, long time. And you virtually traveled the world, as I did, but all the guys before me as well. Wrestling everybody. There was nobody. That's what makes my career different than a lot of the other guys that have had great careers, as I literally have wrestled everybody. I got to be in Tokyo with Brody one night, and in Singapore the next day with Jumbo Tsuruta, or I could be back in St. Louis with Harley Race. I mean, that's what my weeks were like. It was just, and I wrestled Stan, as I acknowledge. I got to wrestle all these guys, and just it's an opportunity that I'll never forget. And I'm just, it was a lot of hard work, but I mean, looking back on it now, I was such a lucky guy to be in such a position. So that belt, it meant the world to me. When I won that, I was like, I thought I was, in the right spot. As I said before, I found out shortly that I wasn't ready for it. But when I won it back the second time, I felt a level of comfort, and I was off and running.
So there you have it. It's Ric's very favorite world title, and he did a great job on the inscription with this one, too. It's in a bold blue Sharpie, and it has a signature catchphrase right on the strap. It's awesome. Check it out at RicFlairShow.com or on Twitter at Ric Flair Show if you'd like to see pictures. And I want you to know, these belts cost hundreds of dollars online, and that's before you get the Nates to sign it. But this one can be yours for free, so just check it out. It's RicFlairShow.com or on Twitter at Ric Flair Show. Here's all you have to do to enter. Go to iTunes and type a review, then screenshot it and post it to social media with the name you left for the review. And then just hashtag Ric Flair Show. It's easy. Let's run through it again. Number 1, go type a review on iTunes. It helps. We need your help. Number 2, screenshot and post that review to social media. And when you make sure you post it, step 3, go ahead and include your username and hashtag Ric Flair Show. And in 2 weeks, we're going to announce the winner of an autographed NWA World title. It's the Domed Globe, Ric's favorite belt, and we're giving it away. Be sure to check out all the details at RicFlairShow.com. On the other side, Ken Patera coming up.
MLW Radio is the place to go to binge on podcasts from the experts, those who've been in the business at its highest levels, and those with insight and stories that you can only get at MLW Radio Network. Out now. Dave Bautista stops by and talks WWE road stories, dream matches, and Guardians of the Galaxy 2 with MVP and Greeny on the new HPV Lounge. Tomorrow, Marty and Sarah love wrestling, and you will too, as they discuss the happenings in wrestling and get frisky with sexual Morrow. Then, this Friday, journey back to 1989 and go behind the scenes of the American Dream Dusty Rhodes jump to the WWF. What's the real story behind the polka dots? Find out on the premiere episode of Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard. Plus, much, much more. Subscribe to these shows for free. The world of MLW Radio never stops. Go to MLWRadio.com and binge on pro wrestling talk from the experts now.
All right, Ric, it's time to talk about maybe our favorite sponsor on the show. It's Casper. Casper's been with us a long time, so if you enjoy the podcast, we want you to check out Casper.com. And here's what you're going to find. You're going to find that you can get a great mattress, a whole heck of a lot more affordable than you ever thought possible. Mattresses can cost well over $1,500, but Casper mattresses cost $500 for a twin-size mattress, $750 for a full, $850 for a queen, and only $950 for a king. These guys have gotten it right. They've spent thousands of hours perfecting the perfect mattress. It's got springing latex and supportive memory foam. And Ric, this has been a hit at your house. Is that right?
It certainly has. It is, in Wendy, in my estimation, it's our second home.
I tell you what, you're going to feel that strongly as well. And here's the great thing about buying a Casper mattress. You can do it completely risk-free. They offer free delivery. That's right, free delivery and free returns, so they're not going to hook you there. But best of all, they've got a 100-night home trial. If you don't love it, they'll pick it up and refund you everything. They understand the importance of truly sleeping on a mattress before you commit. It's not like you can walk into a store, lay on it for 3 minutes, and then know it's right. 100 nights, you're going to know for sure. This thing is the way to go. It's made right here in America. They've got free shipping and returns to the U.S. and Canada. You don't want to miss this. You get to try it for 100 nights. Why would you not do that? Time Magazine actually named it one of the best inventions of 2015. In fact, it's now the most awarded mattress of the decade, and you can get all the details right now and even get a special offer just for listening to this show. You get an extra $50 off any mattress purchase by visiting Casper.com/Flair and use what promo code, Rick?
FLAIR, Flair, the most deluxe mattress in the industry today.
Casper.com. Check it out right now. $50 off any mattress purchase. Just go to Casper.com/Flair and that promo code again, Rick?
It's FLAIR, Flair. Woo!
Terms and conditions apply.
Woo! Woo! You're listening to The Ric Flair Show.
You're talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, woo, wheeling dealing, limousine right, jet flying, son of a gun, and I'm having a hard time holding these alligators down.
The Ric Flair Show. And now, more Ric Flair.
It's my privilege today, and I've said this publicly 100 times, I'll argue this with anybody, arguably one of the greatest athletes that I've ever met in my life. He competed in professional wrestling for a number of years, but long before that, he made the 1972 Olympic team in 2 events, track and field as an alternate in the shot put, and weightlifting as a heavyweight. Ladies and gentlemen, Ken Patera, legitimately the first man to ever press 500 pounds over his head. And I'm telling you this, I used to take him over because I would take Ken around like I did Andre the Giant. I took him over to the University of Minnesota, and at 6 foot even in height and 330 pounds, he could stand under the basket and dunk the basketball. Oh, yeah, I took him everywhere. Williams Arena. I said, just come over to these guys. Nobody could believe it. And man, and I'm telling you, when I went to train with him at the gym, there was nobody like it, guys. Everybody came from around the world when they heard Ken moved to Minneapolis to train. And he could do stuff in the gym, guys. I mean, and this is for weightlifters. They're going to hear about the show and they're going to hear this stuff. Ken Patera, who never did flat bench presses, because it was against what he was doing. He'll explain that later. Could always bench press 500 pounds. And I have seen him do it 5 or 6 times. I've also seen him do 505 incline press 8 times. That was closer to what on the event that he completed in. And I've seen him behind the neck press 440 pounds.
Oh, my gosh.
Seated on a bench. So, Ken, I'll turn it over to you. He didn't do squats. He could squat 800. He could always deadlift 700, even though he was not a power lifter. Ladies and gentlemen, the world's strongest man. And I'll see Mark Henry and remind him of that next week. How are you, man?
Good. Another day in paradise.
Yeah, Jesus. Hey, So ladies and gentlemen, Ken, you're in St. Paul right now, Ken, correct?
Well, on the east side of St. Paul. I live in Woodbury.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's where the rich people live.
Well, I think it's the wealthiest suburb in Minnesota.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. That's where you live.
You know, when you grew up in Edina back in the 60s and 70s, Edina was the second wealthiest suburb in America.
Yeah, I know.
At that time, and I think Woodbury might be right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, it's funny because a lot of things have swung over the St. Paul way. In the old days, when I was growing up, St. Paul was like the second city. Now it's become much more equal, on a much more equal basis with Minneapolis. So. Well, anyway, I got to tell this story, guys. We'll start it out, and I'll turn it over to Ken. So I was a 21-year-old kid that loved weightlifting, read all the magazines, and the guy who was on the cover of every magazine back in those days was a guy named Ken Patera, who was the first person to press 500 pounds over his head. in the history of the world, not just the United States. So I'm seeing this, and I'm sitting, and I'm bouncing, and but I read the magazines religiously. I'm working out. I'm trying to get stronger myself. I've already been removed from college, so that was a short run. and I'm bouncing at a bar called George's at the Park, and I'm leaning against a cigarette machine, sitting on a stool, and lo and behold, through the back door into the Red Dog Saloon, there were two entrances to the bar. With in comes this guy, and I look at him and I see him. I say, God, that can't be who I think it is. And he walks in, he sits down, he takes out a Salem cigarette, lights it up, and orders a beer and a shot of vodka. And I'm going, wow, that can't possibly be Ken Patera. He's training for the Olympic Games. Hell. So, needless to say, I can't take my eyes off him because I know it's him. And I walk over and say, you're not Ken Patera. He said, yeah, how you doing? I said, I asked him, I said, what are you doing smoking and drinking? He said, that's what I do all the time. What do you want? Think my life is going to change because I'm training for the Olympics? So the rest is history, man. I sat down next to him. I took the night off, and I got drunk with him. Hell, and within a couple of weeks, we're living together, and the rest is history. Ken, I'll let you fill in the spots.
The reason you recognized me when you came back to the Red Dog Saloon, I had been on the Wild World of Sports the week before.
Oh, that's right. Yes, that's right. Yep.
Yeah, from the World Weightlifting Championships. Where in the hell were those that year? I think over in Warsaw, Poland.
Wow.
Yeah, but that's where you had done the 500-pound press, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Yeah. So that was a wild night. Yeah, but you came over to me and we were talking. I said, "Do you have a cigarette machine around here?" And he said, "Yeah, right over there." And so I took 2 quarters out, went over there and popped the 2 quarters in the machine, pulled the plunger, got a pack of Salem menthols.
Yeah.
And at that time, I'd been smoking since I was 10 years old.
Oh my
I started
gosh.
on my dad's. I started with stealing my dad's Lucky Strikes and Camels.
Jesus.
And
go ahead, Ken. So, Ken moved. You were living in Portland prior to coming to Minneapolis, correct?
Yeah, that's where I grew up. Yeah.
Yeah, because Ken, which is an interesting subject we can talk about later, knew the Prefontaine kid. Am I saying that right, Ken?
Yeah.
Yeah, you knew him, the runner that died tragically. But you went to BYU, and you made the Olympic team as an alternate in the shot put, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I was fourth. Unfortunately, I was fourth in the world in the shot, and I was also fourth in the United States. And they only take the top 3 to the Olympic Games, but the person that places fourth is automatically on the team as an alternate. In case somebody gets injured. Yeah.
So how about that for a resume, Conrad? You're a little bit speechless right now.
That's a big deal, man. That type of athlete doesn't come along very often in wrestling, and that begs the question, Mr. Patera, how'd you go about getting in the business?
Well, when I was, I don't know, 10, 11 years old, my parents got a TV set. First program we turned on was Portland All-Star Wrestling. And we used to watch it every Saturday morning. All the kids in the neighborhood would come over and fill up our living room. We were the only family in the neighborhood that had a TV. So that's 1953. And so we used to have a heck of a time. And then when I graduated from high school, I went to a gym up the street from us, Sam LaPrenzi's gym. And all the professional wrestlers would go to Sam's to train. It was only 1 or 2 gyms in the whole city at that time. I think the YMCA had a gym, and then there was Sam LaPrenzi's gym. And Sam had been a Mr. America and Mr. Universe competitor. So that's how I met all those wrestlers when I was 17 years old. and I got real intrigued with it. And then several years later, my oldest brother, Jack Patera, who's the first coach of the Seattle Seahawks in 1976. But prior to that, for 8 years, he was defensive line coach for the Minnesota Vikings under Bud Grant. And so actually I had flown from Columbus, Ohio into Minneapolis on my way back to Portland and stopped here for about a week and a half, and stayed with my brother and his family. And he introduced me to Vern Gagne. He was the heavyweight wrestling champ, and he was also the wrestling promoter in downtown Minneapolis. So my brother called Vern. My brother had been at a picnic out at Vern's house out on Lake Minnetonka, and so they knew each other fairly well. So he tells me jump in one of his cars. I drove down downtown Minneapolis, the old Dykeman Hotel, Rick.
I know. Jeez. Wally Carbo.
Yeah, Wally Carbo.
Bill Casisto.
Yeah. So I'm up in the wrestling office introducing myself, and a cast of characters came to the office that day. Mad Dog Vachon and his brother Paul the Butcher, Eduardo Carpentier, the Crusher.
Yeah, Vern had all of them, man. The Bruiser, Henning, Harley, all those guys were there. Ray and Nick, he had them all.
Yeah, they were all there, and Dick Byers was there, and Dick walks in, he's got his hood on. It's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. 80 degrees outside. He walks in with his mask.
He never took it off. He wore it everywhere in Japan for 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. And I said at that time, well, this is what I want to do after the Olympic Games. And so Vern Gagne says, well, what makes you think that you're going to be able to make the Olympic team? And so I told him my resume, 4 gold medals in the Pan American Games, first one to lift 500 pounds overhead. I was on the international track and field team 4 years in a row. And, all my brothers were all professional football players. And so he says, yeah, well, you think you're tough enough? And that's when the Crusher walked in the office. He says, how do you think you do against this guy? And I said, well, I don't know. And so that got it launched. And so Vern helped sponsor me for the next year and a half while I was training under Ric Flair's tutelage.
Don't start blaming me that bronze medal on me, okay, please?
Right. We stopped drinking when the lights went out, but the lights never went out. Yeah, it could be 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
I said, Rick, I was supposed to be at the gym at 6 o'clock this morning. Yeah, damn it, I missed another workout. But, yeah,
come on, please. At least they had some fun. I used to close your door.
Yeah, right. Yeah. The house would be full of people, anywhere from 12 to 20 people. Yeah. I'd be upstairs at 2 in the morning trying to get some sleep. I'd have to go over the top of the steps and yell down.
Actually, I closed your door and left Annie McClellan with you. There's a name out of the past. I hope she hears this.
Yeah, Annie. Yeah, I saw her over at Bunny's bar a couple years ago.
Did you really?
Yeah. And, a couple years ago. It was about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But, she looked good. Yeah, she was looking good.
Yeah, she always did. Jeez.
Yeah.
The whole family.
Hey, I was in Charlotte a couple of years ago, and a guy from Virginia, he gave me a gave me your phone number on the back of a business card and asked me to call you. Well, I tried calling, but I could never get through that. That phone line went into a recorder or something, from what I remember.
I don't know, gosh. What were you in Charlotte for?
Well, for that autograph session with Price.
Oh, up at Greg Price's. Okay, cool. Yeah, I know. Yeah, God, I wish I'd known it. What's funny, I mean, it's ridiculous that, and when we're sharing this while we're doing the podcast, but you know what's funny about our business? There are people that you never, ever stop remembering, but sometimes you don't see them forever. I mean, and I'm going to bring up a name that nobody will know except for Ken and I. You knew that Bill Light passed away, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Billy
I mean, that was just terrible, Diagnosed with cancer.
Cancer, yeah.
Well, I was just talking to him last September and October. Every time the Gophers would get beat, I'd call him and make a joke about it, right?
Yeah.
and then sure enough, I get a call from Julie, and he's got cancer, and he dies 6 months later.
Yeah.
It was just terrible.
Yeah, he went fast. Man,
that was. Thank God for everything we have, man. Well, go ahead with your story, Ken. This is, like I said, Conrad, these credentials, I forgot about the 4 gold medals at the Pan Am Games. I mean, it's a phenomenal story.
Yeah, and so anyway, when I was in Charlotte for that deal, I tried to get a hold of you, but I don't know what happened. And I was sitting out in the lobby getting ready to go to the airport. Who comes walking through the door?
Who?
Sue.
Oh, Sue, your ex-wife.
Yeah, Annie's sister.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't going to bring that up. You pretty much ran the family gambit.
Yeah. Well, you left out Molly.
Don't leave little Molly out of that equation.
Yeah. Molly, she got into drugs real heavy. She passed away, 35 years ago.
Molly?
Molly.
Yeah, I know.
I
know.
Yeah, that's terrible. But and as far as the weightlifting and all that stuff, so somebody called me out of years ago and said, Ken, you have any idea how many national and international weightlifting records you set? I said, I have no idea. He said 72.
Wow. That's amazing. That's absolutely
72.
amazing.
72. And I had no idea. Yeah, I never kept track of that stuff. But my buddy, you remember Bruce Wilhelm?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, he won the World's Strongest Men contest the first 2 years. And what was that, 77 and 78?
Yeah, well, you took second, right?
No, I took third.
Took third. Okay, I couldn't remember. Just to interject a story. So I had a Chevrolet van, one of the first big ones, tricked out. Mulligan and I bought it, and Ken and I had and there was an incline on my street, and Ken built a harness, and when he was training for the World's Strongest Man contest, Conrad, he would pull. I'm talking about a tricked out, customized van, like a quarter of a mile, 3 different times.
Wow.
Up a hill.
Yeah, that was a big van.
So that had some major parties in it. I don't know. There were probably 10 people when you were doing it that hadn't got up yet.
Yeah. Well, the thing I liked about Blackjack Mulligan was standing out there. He's like 6'8", 300 pounds. He was out there, had that big thick rope, and he kept hitting me in the back with it.
Yeah,
faster.
Yeah. Oh, God. The funny thing of it is, though, Conrad, he probably had a Salem in his mouth while he was pulling it.
Yeah, and a beer in my back pocket.
Well, Ken, I just got to say this because Ken and I did get to work together eventually in Charlotte when he first came down there. And, of course, we hung together. We did everything together. But I can tell you, the first time I ever got press slammed, we were in the Park Center, the old building in Charlotte, and I just knew you don't know how strong someone is till you actually feel them. Ken could press slam me, and I weighed about, this is before the airplane crash, right, Ken, or after it? I can't remember.
No,
I
way
think before it, right?
Yeah.
So I weighed about 265, 270. Conrad, he could throw me across the ring almost to the point where I had to tell him, don't throw me quite so hard. My feet were hitting the top rope across the side of the ring.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about from turnbuckle to turnbuckle, however far that is.
Yeah.
But I said, not quite so far. You could throw me as high as you want.
Yeah. I did that to Jimmy Brunzell up in Richmond, Virginia. And I picked him up and press slammed him. And I picked him up again. Kenny, I landed on my shoulder. Don't throw me on my shoulder. I said, stop hanging on to me. I pressed him, 5-6 times, and I stepped back in the corner and launched him. And his feet caught the top turnbuckle on the other side of the corner. That's like 24, 25 feet.
Oh,
he come down, hit his head on the mat, and he almost knocked himself out.
Yeah. Trust me.
It was brutal.
Yeah, he was, and trust me, he was not. Ken was not coming in the ring impaired. I don't ever want to give you that impression when we talk about drinking all that.
Oh, no.
Ken never was impaired. He was just that damn strong. And God, well, Ken, I'll tell you what I'd like to do, because this, I was in Charlotte. You were back in Minneapolis. Can you, if you don't mind, and what I'd love to, because I don't even know the whole story. I do basically. Will you share the story of the night in Milwaukee?
Oh, that was outside of Milwaukee.
Waukegan, right?
Wisconsin. Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
That's right outside of Milwaukee.
This would have been in 84, is that right?
84, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 1984.
And you were with Saito, right?
Yeah, Mr. Saito and I were on Vern Gagne's twin Navajo airplane, and so we were in Watertown, Wisconsin. So after the matches, we jumped in the plane. We flew over to Waukesha there, not very far, and so we get a ride over to the Holiday Inn. Then we check in and everything. It was about, it must have been 11:30. Yeah, about 11:30 that night. So we stopped by the bar and got a couple drinks, and I told Saito, I said, Saito, I'm tired. And so I went back to we checked in, went to the room, and he decided to come back too. He had wrestled Mad Dog Vachon that night, and Mad Dog messed his knee up pretty bad. And so both of us, we hobbled down the hallway, check in, get in the room. I called my wife. By this time, it's like midnight. So I call her. And, then all of a sudden, there's a knock on the door.
Well, so tell them what preempted this, though. What about the McDonald's and that?
Yeah, prior to checking in, we were down at. Saito hurt his knee in the match, so he couldn't walk down to McDonald's. I said, just stay here. So I walked down to McDonald's about 2 blocks away. I walked up to the drive-thru, and so they had 2 platters of hamburgers. I could see through the window, and there were big piles of hamburgers in there. And I said, I'd like to buy a half a dozen hamburgers. Well, we're closed. I said, what do you mean you're closed? The place is full. He said, well, we're shooting a commercial, and the platters of hamburgers, that's for the commercial. I said, I'll give you $50. No, I can't do it. So there's this kid comes up on the side of the drive-thru and throws a rock through the window, through the side of the drive-up window. And I look at the kid. I said, what the hell you do that for? He said, they fired me a couple days ago at school. I said, well, shit. And here I'm standing there, and the kid that was at the, waiting on me, he knew who I was. And he said, you're Ken Patera, aren't you? I said, yeah. I said, well, think about it. I said, I'm sorry about that rock through the window. And I said, I don't know who in the hell that was. He said, did you look at the guy? He said, about 17, 18 years old. He said that you guys fired him. Well, I couldn't get any food, so I walked back up to the Holiday Inn 2 blocks away and go down the room. And Saito says, you have hamburgers? I said, they won't serve me. And I told him, that's when I called my wife. And so I'm talking to her, and all of a sudden, the knock on the door, Saito answers the door, and I kind of hear a little commotion going on. So I told my wife, I'll call her later. So I hang up. I go to the door. I said, Saito, where the hell are you? I thought he went in the bathroom. Well, he was out in the hallway with these 2 cops. One was a 19-year-old girl that looked like olive oil, Popeye's girlfriend.
Right.
Yeah, and the other guy, his name was John Dillinger.
Oh, jeez. Oh, my gosh.
Can you imagine? What a name from the past, huh? The gangster. But anyway, so I hold the door open. I said, what's going on here? He said, are you Mr. Patera? I said, yeah. Were you at McDonald's earlier? I said, yeah, I just got back. I went down there to get some hamburgers, and they wouldn't sell them to me. They were shooting a commercial. Well, we got to ask you some questions. I said, go ahead. They said that you threw a rock through the window. I said, hold on. So I repeated the story I just said. I said, some disgruntled kid that got canned a couple of days prior to that threw a rock through the window. It wasn't me. And he said, well, the attendant at the drive-up said that it was you. I said, how could it be me? I was talking to her, So anyway, the next thing I know, the girl pulls her mace can out. Well, Saito was between the girl cop and me. But I didn't see her pull the mace can. So she goes to mace Saito. He ducks and gets me in both eyes.
Oh, wow.
Now, I'm livid. And I can't see shit. I'm trying to wipe the crap out of my eyes. And then she jumps on my back. 19-year-old Twiggy. She couldn't weigh more than 120 pounds. She's about 5'10". And jumps on my back. I could not believe it. So Saito, the John Dillinger, the other cop, they get into it. Well, Saito just, dropped down, grabbed him by the ankle and snapped his knee. And next thing we know, there's 16 state troopers on top of us. Well, that lasted about, 15, 20 seconds. We had them all stacked up like kindling. And then John Dillinger, so I tell the guy cop, I say, hey, just put the cuffs on us. I said, this is over. And he was as nervous as a son of a bitch. He pulled out his gun. I think it was like I don't know much about guns. Is there a 44 Magnum?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's what he pulled. That's what his gun was, and he's sitting there holding it with both hands pointing right at me, shaking like a leaf. I said, "Hey, boss, put the gun down. Put the cuffs on me. This thing's over." Just prior to that girl, jumping on my back, she's trying to put her fingernails in my eye. And so I didn't even really realize who it was on my back. I just reached up with my elbow and knocked them off. And then, of course, they take us down to the jailhouse. You wouldn't believe. She told the court and the judge, the jury, that she was trying to apprehend me or something. She said she had me in a chokehold and all, which isn't true. But anyway, I knocked her off. She says, when I knocked her off, I turned around, picked her up, and rammed her head into the wall at least 10 to 12 times.
Wow.
Of course, there was no blood or hair on the cinder block wall. Then she said Saito jumped up in the air and came down on the back of her neck with a knee drop.
Jesus
and the whole
Christ.
thing was fabrication. The whole thing was all bullshit lies. And I mean, I could talk about this for 2 hours, but that was the gist of it. So we wanted a quick and speedy trial, within 60 to 90 days. Well, they kept us out for a year and a half. Every week for that next year and a half, they wrote some negative story. They had the people believing that we were space invaders from outer space that came to town just to beat up their police department.
Wow.
It was so bullshit. I talk about a railroad job. You remember that that sports writer from Chicago, Rick Royko?
Of course, yes.
Yeah. What a piece of shit he was.
I didn't hear the stories. I knew that, I don't think people, and Ken can attest to this, Vern Gagne was so influential in the Midwest, and he was very close to a U.S. Senator. What's the guy's name that went to bat for you guys? It starts with an R.
I really don't remember. I know who you mean.
Yeah, anyway, he flew to Milwaukee and to talk to the judge. I mean, said, this is ridiculous. This is a U.S. Senator. And the judge wouldn't hear of it. He just dismissed the guy. And then the next thing I knew, you guys got sentenced to what, 2 years apiece?
2 years, 2 years state, and 6 years probation.
Wow.
It's the stiffest for that type of incident. It's the stiffest sentence in the history of Wisconsin. And a friend of mine over here in St. Paul at the time, his neighbor was a judge, and he came over, and he said, well, don't worry about it. He said, Ken, I've never seen anybody get more than 30 days and a $200 fine for this.
Yeah.
So,
That was Dick Rhymes' friend, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he said, if you were in my court, I'd give you 30 days and $250 fine. 2 years stay and 6 years probation.
Wow.
So that would give me an idea. Yeah.
They put you guys in separate facilities too, right?
Well, no, the first 30 days we shared a cell.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And, yeah. They have to process you, give you all these evaluations and everything, and give you, your tests and whatnot. And I remember one of the ladies, psychiatrists, she says, Ken, do you like math? I said, well, yeah. She says, well, your math exam came back here in the top 2% that have ever taken this test.
Wow.
I said, really? She says, yeah. She says, your test scores were more than exceptional. She says, I'd like to get you enrolled in, here I'm sitting there with 2 college degrees. What the hell do I want to go to school again for? But anyway, so anyway, we were processed out, and then they sent me to Waupun Penitentiary. That's the big penitentiary over there in Wisconsin. And then they sent Saito to a holding camp of some kind. I really don't. And then I was there for 6 months, and the last year I was in kind of like a release center. There's no fences or bars, or you come and you go. You just have to check in and check out. Well, hell, I went and played golf every day with one of the guards.
Wow.
There was like a half a dozen guards at the place. They'd take turns taking me to the golf course or, down some lake, it wasn't too far, go fishing. My wife brought our 2 little daughters over every weekend. So, it It wasn't bad.
What? Yeah. Gosh, tell me that sounds horrible. So didn't I remember when I talked to you? Because ironically, almost at that same time. No, I take that back. That was a little bit later on when Jack Mulligan went to prison. Remember?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was quite a bit later. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but I mean, this is the second time I'm seeing this with friends of mine in my career, and just. But here's what amazes me, and I want to go on record as saying this: you've got a guy who's an international athlete. Okay, he's got 2 college degrees, by BYU, and what were your degrees in, Ken?
Oh, well, secondary education. But my major was history and sports. Yeah.
Yeah, and you would think that you would look at this resume, and I mean, Saito, I understand the difficulty because he was raised in Japan, and it's hard to bring up his past and his background, and certainly not saying that he deserved it any more than anybody. And to have this go down, I mean, Conrad, you have to admit that's a very unusual situation.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, you don't hear stories like that very often. And
no, he's telling you the exact story. I mean, 2 years
for that
and doing nothing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you just wonder sometimes these guys want to be judges in these small towns. It's like Wendy and I are driving back from what beach is that? Sunset Beach. At Christmas Day, and this cop, this little dinky town, writes her a ticket. I mean, on Christmas Eve. You know what I mean? They got to have their moment, and it's just sad because I think that still goes on a lot.
Yeah, actually, the guy cop, that John Dillinger, he kind of stuck up for us.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, I heard that there was nothing but favorable things said about both of you. Especially you, but the judge, he just ignored it all, right?
Well, the judge and the district attorney were up for re-election a year and a half after that thing happened. And that's why they kept us out of court for that long, because they wanted to enhance their resumes so they could get re-elected. The 2 bastards, they got re-elected.
Wow.
Yeah. And the thing is, we had 2 district court judges and a senator speaking on our behalf, and that fucking judge still gave us that type of a sentence. It was all bullshit.
Yeah. Geez.
Mr. Patera, at the time, you were working for the AWA, is that right?
Yeah.
There's been
Yeah, go ahead.
There's been a rumor online that while you were away, that the McMahon family tried to help take care of the homestead for you guys. Is that make-believe, or is that real?
No, that's true.
Because he was working for WWE when he finally had to go to court, right?
Right.
Yeah, it was a year and a half later. I was back in the WWF. Well, WWF at that time.
Yeah.
And so when we got locked up, Vince and his wife Linda would send money to my wife every week.
Wow.
Just like clockwork. Unfortunately, when I got out, they told me that I had to pay the money back.
Did you go back to work for him?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but then Vince's wife, Linda, calls me in the office one day, I think about 2 months after I got out. No, because I didn't go back to work until 6 months after I got out.
Okay.
I got out in December, and Vince had called and wanted me to start back in May or June. So it was quite a while. So by July, August, what year would that have been? 87?
87, yes, sir.
Yeah, 87. And so Linda calls me into the office. I think we were wrestling down in Tennessee somewhere. And so she says, Ken, I'd like to talk. She says, that money that we gave you, to take care of your family when you're in prison. She says that was a loan. I said, what? She said, well, that's a loan that has to be paid back. So we're going to take this amount out of each paycheck. Wow, shit. Unbelievable. So I kind of lost a little respect for him. After, I started back there in 76 doing TV. I think it was October 76.
Yeah.
And I was the headliner. I was the main eventer for him for years.
I don't think a lot of people recognize that. And Rick, I want you to speak to this accomplishment too. At one time, Mr. Patera was both the WWF Intercontinental Champion and the Missouri Heavyweight Champion at the same time.
I know.
And I know a lot of younger fans may not realize what a big deal the Missouri title was and how cool it was at the time to hold both belts. Kind of let younger listeners know what a big accomplishment that was for you.
Yeah. Actually, my fiance is pulling the pictures of Ken right now. Yeah, what a fabulous physique, Ken. When you trim down, Ken was a phenomenal. I had a phenomenal physique when he trimmed down for wrestling. It was. Anyway, to be the Missouri heavyweight champion, which was the second most prestigious belt actually in the NWA because it was just in St. Louis, recognized in St. Louis, and then to be the Intercontinental champion with that company was huge. I mean, I don't think anybody's ever duplicated that. I've never heard of it. And Ken was, I mean, it's the terrible interruption of his career is just, I mean, I look back on that and I think about it because he was just rolling. I mean, there was nothing holding Ken back. And, it's like anything else. Once Vince McMahon gets a hold of you, you become bigger than life. I mean, they have a way of taking guys and, where Vern, lost, that's how he lost Hulk. They wouldn't get into the marketing and building the brand. And I mean, Ken Patera was a brand unto himself. Now, not just as a weightlifter, but as a professional wrestler, and it was fabulous. I mean, Ken was rolling.
Yeah, I was the only one to ever hold those two belts at the same time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'd never heard of anybody else being in that position. That was awesome.
Well, it was a unique position, too, because Ken was a super powerful Olympian babyface, but then became a heel.
Yep.
Mr. Patera, that had to go against the grain back then, didn't it? Were any promoters against making, an Olympian a heel? Because that seems like a natural babyface.
No, that was my choice. No, I hated being a good guy. Yeah, the heels have all the fun, and I was sick and tired of not having any fun. You get in a babyface locker room, and all those bastards, they're all uptight. Nobody wanted to do a job. Well, God, I can't get beat. This is my hometown. Nobody smiled. And you get in the heels locker room, everybody's laughing and having a good time and talking about what they're going to do after the show that night. And so I felt much more comfortable with the bad guys than I ever did with the good guys.
Yeah, well, hey, when we get off there, I'll explain why that was a necessity.
Yeah, right.
Hey, you ain't never been a babyface, buddy.
No.
Rick, you guys work together at Mid-Atlantic with Wahoo McDaniel, and Mr. Patera, Rick never gets tired of talking about Wahoo. Do you have any memories of working with him back in the day?
With Wahoo?
Yes, sir.
Well, I could tell you some stories about going up and down the highway with Wahoo. The first time I ever met Wahoo, I was 16 years old. And the Dallas Cowboys had just became a franchise, 1960. And Wahoo was an All-American, three-time All-American right out of Oklahoma. And the Dallas Cowboys had drafted him. And because Dallas was an expansion franchise at that time, my brother Jack, the football coach, he was middle linebacker in the NFL at that time. And he got picked up in the expansion draft. And so the Cowboys took my brother through a trade with, at that time it was the Chicago Cards, who later moved to St. Louis. But anyway, it was too hot in Dallas for training camp, so they came up to a little town outside of Portland, the Forest Grove Junior College. It was about 15 miles west of Portland. So they're out there in training camp. So I had a couple friends that had a car. We'd drive out there like every other day for a week and a half and watch the Dallas Cowboys train and stuff. And they were supposed to be there for a month and a half. Well, after about 15 days, they left. They went back to Dallas. You know why? It was 102 to 106 degrees every day.
Wow.
And it rained.
Yeah, right. No, they had a drought.
Yeah.
And that was the first, that area of the Northwest had never experienced a heat wave like that in history. It must have been global warming.
Yeah. Hey, what Ken didn't mention, which speaking of his brother Jack, who I got to know real well too through Ken, Jack is the guy that put the Purple People Eaters together with Eller, Page, Marshall, and
Gary
Eller
and
Wrong Way
Marshall.
Jim Marshall.
Yeah, Wrong Way.
Yeah.
I still remember. I see Jimmy around once in a while. And Eller. Yeah.
But that was a phenomenal defensive line. As a matter of fact, under Jack, Alan Page became the first defensive player to ever become the MVP, the second being Lawrence Taylor of the entire league. Right. And he only weighed, Jack told me, he only weighed 222 pounds.
That's exactly right.
Remember that, Ken? Yeah, he looked bigger, but even Eller was lean. I see Eller once in a while at signings now, but Eller was only about 255. But Page is a defensive player, the most valuable player in the National Football League at 222 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, defensive tackle.
Yeah. Out of Notre Dame. Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, but, in 6 years before that, my brother Jack put together the Fearsome Foursome out at the L.A. Rams.
Oh, he did? I didn't know that. Wow.
Oh, Lamar Lundy, Deacon Jones, Merlin Olson.
Roger Brown.
No, Roger wasn't there at that time. Let's see.
Okay.
Deacon Jones. Who the hell? Deacon Jones. Rosie Greer.
Rosie Greer, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, Brown came afterwards. Yep.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and Jack had those guys for 4 years.
Yeah.
And
See, Conrad, are you getting a history lesson now about sports?
I am, yes, sir.
See, this is why we're beating PTI every week.
Yeah.
Mr. Patera, Rick considers Bobby Heenan to be the greatest manager in history, and you worked with Bobby quite a bit. Can you tell everybody what you think made Bobby so great?
Well, because he loved the business. Bobby got kicked out of military academy in Chicago. He got kicked out. He never graduated from high school. And his mom was raising him over in Indianapolis at the time. But he couldn't stay in school over there, so his mom sent him over to the military academy. So he was a troubled child, as we say nowadays. but Bobby,
is that what I was?
Yeah, and you were just one step behind Bobby.
I'll take that.
The only thing you had over Bobby Heenan is that you actually graduated from high school.
Yeah, but on the 13-year plan. Not on time, but 13 years. But at least I did graduate.
I love it.
And that was close.
Yeah. But yeah, Bobby just he loved the business, and he started with Dick the Bruiser and those guys over in Indianapolis and Chicago, and you could talk a mile a minute.
Sure.
And,
what made him great too is, and we've talked about this, and Ken will acknowledge this. Bobby Heenan is was at the time one of the top 20 in-ring performers too. When he got in the ring, man, Bobby could work his ass off. Holy cow! Upside down, around.
Yeah.
He'd cut himself 40 times in 1 minute. I mean, he loved the action, man. He was afraid of nothing.
Yeah.
He was afraid of nothing, boy. It was amazing.
Yeah, he was fearless. And,
Yep.
And he had great ideas. He could put, he could get, let's say a tag team with Ray Stevens and Nick Bockwinkel against two like Mad Dog and his brother Paul. Bobby could sit there and lay out a whole match for him in just a couple minutes. He had a great mind. And he knew his strengths and he knew his weaknesses, and I loved working with him. When I was getting ready to retire, we were on the road together for about a month and a half. And so we'd rent a car. We'd fly into some town, rent a car. After the matches, we'd go check in. Well, at this one time, this is honest God truth, 12 days in a row, every hotel we checked into, where's the room at? Oh, it's down the hall, last room on the left. I said, okay. Well, the next day, where's the room? Down the hall, last room on the left. And I said, Jesus, Bobby, wasn't there a movie out, last room on the left? A horror movie. And he says, yeah. Well, after 8 or 9 days, I said, this is ridiculous. We check in the Hyatt Regency at the Houston airport. And I said, where's this room? Down that hallway, last door on the left. I said, this is insanity. So we walked down. Bobby goes to put the key in the door. I said, Bobby, it's been 12 straight days. Are you sure you want to open that door? He turns around, looks at me, he said, no, you open it.
Oh, the greatest Bobby Heenan story I got. We're flying in Old Northwest in those days. Ken and I were just starting in Minneapolis, and Heenan would, there's two things he did, but we'd be sitting in first class, and Bobby would go into the restroom and come back walking out with a toilet paper tucked in the back of his pants with the door open with the roll. The whole length of the plane with the toilet paper hanging out the back of his pants. And then he'd go like a mistake and then pick it all up and run back. And he was sitting next to this lady one time, and she goes, what do you do for a living? He says, I'm a salesman. And she says, what do you sell? He says, backdrops and turnbuckles.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he had a great sense of humor.
Oh, my God.
You get Bobby Heenan and Baron von Raschke together.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, those guys will have you laughing, yet you'll be falling down on the floor for hours at a time.
Yep. Yeah. And God, poor Bobby has gone through so much, Ken. Have you seen him?
I saw him in Las Vegas 3 months ago.
Oh, at the Cauliflower Alley, yeah. Jeez, it's hard to believe.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, Cindy was there with him, and I snuck up behind him. He was sitting in a wheelchair there, and I snuck up behind him. I said, Bobby, last room on the left. What?
Yeah.
Well, he can't talk, but
I know.
You could tell that he was chuckling inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, last room. Down the hallway, last room on the left.
Yeah.
And of course, Terry Funk was standing there. He said, "What's that?" And so I told Terry, a few minutes after that what that meant. But I mean, he's in good spirits. And,
no, I know, but I just, for you and I and guys that knew Bobby, it's just hard to see him in that position. So
it's very difficult.
Yeah. Hey, Ken, I was telling, when you brought me up to speed on, I knew you'd had several. Tell him, you're like the $6 million man now. How many new
joints and parts and surgeries
and stuff like that? Surgeries.
Oh, wow. Right knee, left shoulder twice, right hip, and then I had right elbow, left elbow. Oh, I'm a mess. I tell everybody I'm a 73-year-old legitimate invalid.
Well, I mean, I'm telling you, that weightlifting, and a lot of that was due to wrestling because Ken took a lot of bumps, obviously,
Sure.
but that weightlifting took a toll on your body, huh?
Well, yeah, about 2 years into my, when the MRIs came out, that MRI machine, I can't remember what year that was, but it was in the 80s.
Yeah.
And one of the clinics over here in Minneapolis, I went in there and they did a full scan of all my joints. And you remember Harvey O'Phelan?
Of course, yeah, Dr. Phelan, yeah.
Yeah, the famous surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the one that did it. And he came in to me a couple days later. He says, Ken, every joint in your body, every tendon insertion into your bones, every one of them is scarred.
Yeah.
He says, I can't believe that you can even do anything. And I says, well, I keep going, And he says, well, just stay in touch, He's the one that, if it wasn't for Harvey O'Phelan over in the 72 Olympics, I wouldn't have even been able to compete because my back had gone out on me. I couldn't even stand up. And he pulls out this syringe about 6 inches long.
Yeah, I remember.
Needle.
Yep.
Yeah. And he gave me a cortisone injection on either side of my lower back. And the next day, now it's 4 days before competition. And besides my back, my left knee was all blown out.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Let me tell this part of the story. I mean, aside from the fact that I probably wasn't the best trainer, he wanted Tommy Conal, but Tommy Conal wasn't available. There's a name out of the past.
Right, yeah. He passed away.
But the 6 weeks prior to the Olympic Games, he had knee surgery. That was Job in L.A., right?
Yeah.
See, I got a good memory, man.
Yeah, Dr. O'Donoghue in Oklahoma City did the surgery, and he had done all 4 surgeries on Joe Namath.
Yeah.
Back in those days. And it was 6 months, 6 months prior to the Olympics. And I said, Doc, how long is this thing going to take to heal up? Well, nowadays it'd be 6 weeks. But back in those days, he says, well, 6 to 8 months. I said, shit. I said, the Olympics is in September. And he said, well, I don't know. You're going to have a rough go of it. Well, that summer, month and a half before the Olympics, I had the highest total in the world that year.
Yeah.
The total is the combination of the military press, the snatch, and the clean and jerk, and then you have a total. And I told, 1,400 and something.
Yeah, 1412.
Yeah,
I remember.
And Alexiev was, he was close, 5-6 pounds, but I was in the lead. And so him and I, Vasily Alexiev and I, we were favored to, either one of us could win the gold medal. Well, a couple of weeks later, my knee went out again, and that was just a pisser. Anyway, and a lot of people say, well, why'd you only win a bronze? I said, well, if you had the injury that I had, you wouldn't even been able to compete. The trainers and the doctors told me not to compete. And I said, hell, I trained for 3.5 years and come all the way to Munich, Germany, not to compete. You kidding me? And it's pretty hard to lift 500 pounds over your head when you have a bum knee. But I did it.
Yeah, well, you won the snatch, right, or you won the clean and jerk?
No, the press.
Oh, you won the press. No. Okay, all right. I won you got the bronze overall, right?
No, I just won a bronze in the press because when I went to warm up for the snatch, my knee got so bad that I had no flexibility. I couldn't even squat.
Okay.
I couldn't even do a squat. Yeah. So I went out to do the snatches, but I couldn't hit a lower position while the weight was overhead. And I dropped all 3 of them. And that was the end of my weightlifting career. And so everybody says, especially the weightlifters, it's 4 years from now, Ken, you'll come back, you'll win everything. I said, I'm going to be a professional wrestler.
Yeah.
4 years from now.
Hey, Ken.
4 months later.
Hey, Ken.
Yeah.
Before we go, I've kept you a lot longer than I told you, but I really appreciate it. But you've got to share with Conrad, because I thought this was the greatest stuff in the world. When Arnold Schwarzenegger and Dave Draper and all those guys were working on a Gold's Gym, and you walked in, what'd you say to them?
Oh, I said I'd walked into Gold's Gym down there in Venice Beach, just outside of L.A. I said, "You guys have any weights in here?" So Schwarzenegger says, "Well, we don't have a platform, Ken." I knew all those guys previous to that time, and he says, "Ken, we don't have a weightlifting platform, but we have Olympic sets over in the corner there." Everything was bent and broke and scattered all over the place. And so, those guys were doing seated rows and one-arm rows and, dumbbell curls and everything. And Joe Gold, the owner, he was there. And so I went over and leaned on his desk. He had an old wooden school desk by the front door, and the damn desk almost collapsed. and he said, "Oh, Ken, don't lean on the desk. It's a little wobbly." I'm not kidding. It was ready to fall down. And this is the original Gold's Gym on Venice Beach back in those days. So anyway, I says, "God, and it was raining out. And they have coffee cans, about 10 or 12 of them, around the gym catching the rainwater, because it had an old corrugated steel roof on that leaked like a sieve."
Yeah.
And, it was unbelievable. But those guys liked me, but I intimidated them.
Yeah. No, I know. Did you ever smoke a joint with Schwarzenegger?
Have I ever talked to him?
No, did you ever smoke a joint with him?
One time over at
just kidding.
in Peanuts West Side Barbell Club. It was a double-car garage, and a guy by the name of Peanuts West owned it. And Schwarzenegger and Frank Zane.
Yeah.
I think Columbo was there, Franco Columbo. He
was very strong, right?
Yeah.
You said Columbo was so strong.
Yeah. He was just a little guy. 5'5", 165. He tell everybody that I was 5'8", 5'9", 190.
Mr. Patera, before I let you go, I wanted to see if you could tell us an Andre story. Everybody loves hearing old stories about Andre, his partying, his travel, his drinking. Lots of legendary stories out there about Andre, and you spent a lot of time with Andre. Do you have any fun Andre stories you could share?
Well, you're probably inquiring about that drinking episode at Caesar's Palace. Is that the one you're asking about?
Well, I'd love to hear it.
The one that Terry, what was his name? The power lifter.
Terry Todd.
Terry Todd. He went on a road trip with Andre for like 2 weeks up in New England and wrote a 6-7 page story in Sports Illustrated about it. But anyway, prior to that, Andre and me and Dino Bravo, Lou Albano, Andre's road manager, Frank Valois. Yeah, and a couple other guys. I can't remember who else was there. But anyway, we get into Las Vegas. We were wrestling over at the Thomas Mack Center that night at 8 o'clock. Place is completely sold out, about 19,000 people. So now it's like 8:30 in the morning, and Captain Lou, he wants to go in the bar. So we all stumble in the bar there, and we all ordered Miller Lite. And so the bartender comes over, hey guys, how you doing, and everything. And a couple minutes later, the special event manager comes in, really a nice guy. He said, the drinks are on me, boys. And I says, oh, wow. Oh, and Dirty Dick Murdoch, Captain America.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. So Murdoch looks at Andre. Andre, I can drink more beer in an hour than you can. Well, shit hits the fan now. Well, then we all get in on it. And so I can't remember. Oh, I think it was Murdoch told the bartender, hey, barkeep, come over here. So the guy comes over. You have those little plastic ice buckets? He said, yeah, I have a whole stack of them here. And so he says, put our names on all individual, because we're going to have a beer drinking contest. So the guy came over and we all gave him our names, and he wrote, he knew us all anyway. But anyway, then here the contest starts about 8:45, I think it was. And we start dumping them down. And after an hour, I think Andre had drank 12 beers and Murdoch had drank 7, 8. I drank 6 or 7 myself, and I wasn't even in on the contest. But anyway, after a couple hours, the bartender, every time he brought everybody a beer, he'd take the bottle cap off and put it in the proper plastic bucket. Well, after I think it got to be 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Andre was about 90, 95 beers.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Frank Valois
yeah, he could drink. I told you the story.
Yeah. Frank Valois was 60 years old at the time, and Frank wound up drinking about 70 himself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I drank 45. Now, this is the kicker. I have to wrestle Andre that night. And this is only 3:30 in the afternoon. And so when it was all said and done with, about 7 o'clock, Murdoch had already fallen out and gone to his room, a couple other guys. And Captain Lou Albano was into the vodka by that time. And so anyway, the bartender, and we kept drinking right up to about 7, maybe 7:30. So anyway, the barkeep says, I counted all the bottle caps, and he had it all written down on the plastic buckets. Andre, 116 beers.
Wow.
Yeah.
116 beers. So that's a good drinking. So anybody match that?
No,
I don't think so.
I know the 106 at the Downtowner in Charlotte when Valois drank 54. I actually saw that, but the 116 I wasn't aware of. God.
Yeah, 116 beers. Yeah. Yeah.
And who says wrestlers don't have fun?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was a hell of a bar tab, even though beers were only $1 a piece back in those days.
Yeah.
But or $1.25, whatever it was. But the special events manager, he picked up the whole tab. But that
I'm sure. Who wouldn't want that crew in their bar?
Yeah.
So what'd you do after the matches?
Yeah, you add it all up. That bar tab had to be $400 to $500 for $1 beer.
Ken,
But,
you're the greatest, man.
We used to have some good times.
Thank you so much for doing this for us.
I have, Conrad, I have some stories about Ric Flair. You want to hear them?
Yes.
For another day.
Don't do it.
I won't tell any of the X-rated ones, or triple X-rated ones.
Oh, God, they all are. At the house, especially the house. Please.
Yeah.
The McClellan sisters, my downfall. Please.
Yeah, right.
God, you make one mistake and it follows you around the rest of your life.
One mistake. Wow.
Ken, please.
Yeah.
We'll do this we'll have you back on to just do Ric Flair stories.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll do that.
I will, man.
For
Hey.
sure. Don't forget, Conrad, keep him to his word now.
No, I want to do it. I mean, we talked about last night, Rick and I did, when we were talking about having you on today, that once upon a time when you guys lived together, you didn't have any furniture, but you had 6 water beds. That's a good story.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. And we had 40 gallons of milk and 40 dozen eggs and blenders, and we're off and running. What else do we need?
Yeah. Yeah,
Ken's the only guy that won a medal in the Olympic Games, pressing over 500 pounds over his head, that drank vodka all the way on the plane to Munich.
pretty much. The beer was warm, but the vodka and orange juice, they put ice in my glass, so that helped.
Ken, I love you, man. We got to stay in touch, okay?
Yeah, for sure.
Before we let you go, is there anything you'd like to plug or promote on the show here, Mr. Patera? We'd be happy to promote or plug whatever you'd like.
Well, I'm not really. I was at the Wrestling Hall of Fame down in Waterloo, Iowa, the Lou Says deal down there.
Mm-hmm.
And that was last week, and Baron Von Raschke and Larry the Axe Henning, they were down there.
Yeah, I heard that.
Brunzell,
Jerry Briscoe was there too, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, his wife Mary came along. God, I hadn't seen Mary in years.
You talking about Raschke's wife? Oh, Mary Brunzell. Oh, I know. Yeah,
Mary Brunzell.
Yep.
Yeah, Bonnie Raschke, she was there.
Oh, yeah, Bonnie, isn't the Baron's living, isn't he?
Huh?
The Baron hasn't passed away, has he?
No, him and his wife.
Oh, yeah, Bonnie. Okay, yeah. They live in Rochester, I think, right?
No, they live down here in Hastings.
Oh, they do? Okay, good.
10 miles down the road from me. And,
yeah, those are great times. Raschke's the only guy I know that could sleep with a whole can of dip in his mouth and never take it out at night and sleep all night.
Yeah, he doesn't chew or drink anymore.
Jesus.
Yeah, Larry Henning and his wife were there.
Irene,
Irene, she was there. He doesn't drink anymore. He hasn't drank in 15 years.
Yeah, I know. I heard. Well, I see his grandson Joel all the time. Yeah, geez. Holy cow!
When you get to be that old, when you get to be their age, there's no fun in life anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Well, you're still a lot of fun, Mr. Patera. We appreciate you being on the show with us today. Thank you for taking the time.
Listen, hey Ken, I'm going to call you later on with Conrad today or tomorrow. Then you can tell him all the stories about me. Just not the ones about the hot dog bun and the mustard, okay?
Yeah. You're coming down the steps with my weightlifting belt and weightlifting shoes on and nothing else.
Goodbye, Ken. Goodbye.
Have fun. Okay. Thank you later.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, what can you say about Ken Patera, man? You guys go back how long?
1971.
My gosh, what a great interview! What a great time catching up. Yeah, it was fun just to be a fly on the wall there.
Yeah, we had to cut him off on the staircase one.
That story's out there, kids. If you'd like to see it, go ahead and hit up YouTube. I actually know the story, and I'm sure we'll have Ken on again another time to cover that.
I just liked wearing it. It was like wearing my first world championship belt. Ken Patera's weightlifting belt. Boy, it's amazing the accolades, huh, though, Conrad?
Oh, Jesus. Man, what a hell of a career he's had. What a life he's led, and I was privileged to be a part of it. Back on top
after all this, he's doing really well in the business world right now.
That's phenomenal. And we're going to try to do well in the business world right here. But on the other side of this break, don't miss a thing here on the Ric Flair Show. We're going to cover This Week in History. We've got Ask Nate and a hilarious voicemail. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
How to be the man. As we ended the conversation last week, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that every woman in the place was looking at me, because I'm a man that wants to make sure I get full frontal of everything coming my way. I find a chair with my back to the wall. I'm prepared for the onslaught of women that want my eye, want my attention. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt I can talk to girls with my eyes. It's like Morse code. Blink, 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 blink. And for some reason, they all know what I'm saying. And they just keep coming. It's not 18 to 28 anymore. I've raised the bar a little bit. 28 to maybe 45, 45. But I still know, as apparently do they, who I am. I am Ric Flair. I'm a man that has batted 1,000. I am Joe Namath. I am Clark Kent. I am James Bond. I am rolled into one. I am Ric Flair, the man.
MLW Radio is the place to go to binge on podcasts from the experts, those who've been in the business at its highest levels, and those with insight and stories that you can only get at MLW Radio Network. Out now, Dave Bautista stops by and talks WWE road stories, dream matches, and Guardians of the Galaxy 2 with MVP and Greeny on the new HPV Lounge. Tomorrow, Marty and Sarah love wrestling, and you will too as they discuss the happenings in wrestling and get frisky with sexual Mara. Then, this Friday, journey back to 1989 and go behind the scenes of the American Dream Dusty Rhodes jump to the WWF. What's the real story behind the polka dots? Find out on the premiere episode of Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard. Plus, much, much more. Subscribe to these shows for free. The world of MLW Radio never stops. Go to MLWradio.com and binge on pro wrestling talk from the experts now.
It is now time for This Week in History on The Ric Flair Show. Woo! Brought to you by MidAtlanticGateway.com. Dick Bourne is celebrating the memories of Jim Crockett Promotions every day at MidAtlanticGateway.com.
And Big Van Vader will take on former allies Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. Who will survive this world-class 2-on-1 collision? Find out tonight on Clash of the Champions on TBS.
Big Van Vader. He's going to powerbomb him, Tony. He's got Arn up. Arn bombs Anderson. 1, 2, 3, did it. Where was Flair?
The winner of the featured match of the Clash of Champions, Big Van Vader.
I didn't think he'd do it.
Well, Flair was down. And Arn Anderson is still down in the ring from that massive powerbomb.
And this is after Vader took a DDT and the figure 4. Hey! Come on! Flair's getting up in his face.
Well, Flair's rather upset. Of course, Arn Anderson had him down for three consecutive times there.
Well, look at Arn Anderson. Look at Arn Anderson's eyes. That'll tell the whole story right there. Hey, you're too good of friends. Don't let Vader come between you. Go back to the dressing room, shower.
Oh, that's a face of disbelief, and Flair's walking away from Arn Anderson.
Oh, no. No, not all those years. Don't waste it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
The argument still continues in the ring. Flair was walking away from Arn Anderson.
Go back to the dressing room and talk it over.
And we've got a serious problem with best friends here. All right, Flair walks out again.
Okay, Rick, this week in history, we're going to talk about August 6, 1995. WCW's holding the Clash of the Champions 31 in Daytona Beach, and they announced the debut date and venue for the very first Nitro on this show. And in less than a year, the Outsiders are going to reveal the third member of their group to be Hulk Hogan, and the NWO was born. So a lot is about to change in WCW, but on this card, you and Arn Anderson were in a handicap match against Vader. Whose idea was this, and how did this booking make you and Arn look?
It certainly wasn't Arn or mine. It was Kevin Sullivan.
So what's the thinking?
And when he laid it out to me and Arn, it was entirely different. He goes, I was going to be the Wolverine biting at his heel, and Arn was going to be beating him up on top. It was 2-1, right?
Right.
We were beating Leon.
Right.
Of course, we got to the building, and that fell apart. Yeah, like Arn and I win-loss record really started to go downhill at that point.
So at this point, I guess they're trying to tune up Vader for Hogan. They want to make him look like a monster, so they're throwing you and Arn to the wolves. But Then right after this, you kind of start to see something people thought they'd never see. And remember, this is 1995, but the end of this match would eventually become the seeds of a feud with Arn and yourself. Something a lot of us never thought we would see. Did you have mixed emotions about doing this, or were you excited to do it?
No, we were excited to work with each other. God, we just knew that, and I'm sure he'll say the same thing. It was just too good. You can imagine the promos going into it. You probably have heard some of them.
Sure, they were phenomenal.
And then the match in Asheville, we weren't the main event. We should have been because nothing followed it. Pillman jumped in, but as usual, it was just too good. So it came to an end way too short. It makes sense?
Absolutely, it does.
Yeah, it's just one of those deals where you can imagine the two of us making promos against each other. I mean, I would like to think that we're two of the best. And then to have a match like we did, I've even watched it a couple times. It was phenomenal. And we'd never worked before. So
Fall Brawl 95 is what he's talking about if you'd like to go see it. It's on the WWE Network. And, of course, you can watch the segment we're talking about for This Week in History on Clash of the Champions 31. It's August 6, 1995 on your WWE Network. And that was this week's edition of This Week in History, brought to you by our friends at the Mid-Atlantic Gateway. Coming up, we've got Ask Nate. Let's talk about making your own championship belt. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to be the heavyweight champion of the world? We don't have to wonder anymore, thanks to DaveMillikenBelts.com. We've got Dave with us today, and Dave, you've made belts for everybody, isn't that right?
Lip Sync Battle, WWE, I'm where the pros go.
Absolutely. Here's the thing. If you've seen it on TV, odds are pretty good that Dave Milliken made it. So don't just get a $400 replica. Get one like the pros wear. And all you've got to do is go to that site. What is it again, Dave?
DaveMillikenBelts.com.
Woo! Woo! Don't miss a minute of The Ric Flair Show. Subscribe on iTunes now. The Ric Flair Show.
My name's Ric Flair. Woo!
And now, more Ric Flair.
Ask Nate, brought to you by 1FMC.com. Find out how much money you can save for free at 1FMC.com.
Want to ask Rick a question?
You want answers?
Just tweet using hashtag AskNate.
You don't have to answer that question.
It can be your question next week on The Ric Flair Show.
I'll answer the question.
All right, Rick, this week's question comes to us from C-Note on Twitter as @Thunder_Lips with 2 P's. He says, I noticed during promos that the wrestlers don't look into the camera anymore. Do you know why? That's something I haven't really noticed, Rick, but I guess that does make sense. Usually back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, you guys would get right up in the camera, and now that's not as much of the case as maybe it used to be. Is that a WWE initiative? As times have changed? What type of direction do you get backstage at WWE these days when you're cutting?
I haven't paid much attention to that, but it all depends on the situation and the camera angle.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that's anything that they're doing intentionally. I think it's just, and I'd have to look at, I'd have to see an example of what they're talking about. But that's been going on for years. They never like you to look. It's like kind of like when you're doing one of these one-on-one things where they're asking you questions about your career, or you're commenting on someone else's career. They want you to look at the person that's asking you the questions who's not on camera,
right,
rather than look at the camera. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does.
Yeah.
All right, well, that was this week's Ask Nate, and here's the deal. If you want to ask Rick a question, this is really easy. Just hit us on Twitter and use the hashtag AskNate. And if you're wondering, the proper spelling is NAITCH, hashtag AskNate. And we'll ask your question next week. Coming up, though, the voicemail of the week. And this is a fun one. I think you're going to get a kick out of this one, Rick.
Yeah. Voicemail of the week, brought to you by DaveMillikenBelts.com. Don't get a replica belt. Wear what the pros wear at DaveMillikenBelts.com. If you'd like to be next week's voicemail of the week, just call the Ric Flair Show hotline, 844-RIC-SHOW. Leave your name, city you're from, and your hot take.
Always do the right thing.
If you've got what it takes to style and profile on the show, call now. Toll free at 844-RIC-SHOW. Now, here's this week's voicemail of the week.
Hey, Rick. Jay-Z here from North Carolina. You were always a ladies' man, but surely you hit a slump once in a while. What was your go-to slump buster program?
Hit me. Okay, well, Rick, I never thought I would ask this. Did you ever have a slump, and how did you get out of it?
Well, when I heard that, I have to tell you, I never had a slump.
Oh, my.
Yeah, I don't remember ever batting less than 980 to 990. I may, at the age of 60, I'm still probably batting over 500, but I don't go out much anymore.
When you were in Kansas City...
Since I met Wendy, I don't go out at all. I better cover that in case she's listening to this damn thing.
Oh, no. She's aware. Whenever you come to the Conradison, you're in bed by 7:30. So.
Oh, of course I am. I know, but that's going to start with you at noon. We go for the Mexican place over to Ruth's Chris. Who goes to Ruth's Chris at 3 o'clock?
Right? Ric Flair. Ric Flair does.
Yeah, please.
So come on, you had a Slump Buster program. I'm not going to let you get off of this one easy. I know there were times when you're in the Midwest, you're in some one-horse town, last call is coming, you're drinking heavily and nothing's looking any better, but the options are limited. What's the plan?
Oh, I'm not denying it that there were days that I, was dreadfully lonely, but I never was in a slump. That was just like, it'd be like your airplane running out of gas, which I experienced personally too, and just not being able to do anything about it for 24 hours. But no, I just found something to do. But your slump, you're implying like that when we talk about this later on, I know who's looking at me and who's not. I just have to decide whether I can be that off the wall on that particular night.
I like it.
Yeah, okay, there we go. But as far as a slump, please, come on.
Well, we don't want you to be in a slump if you're listening. If you've got a great question for Rick and you want to ask it on the show, it's easy. Give us a call on the Ric Flair Show hotline, 844-RIC-SHOW. Leave us a voicemail, and we could play it next week. Rick, let's get out of here. Let's get some free plugs for all of our participants today. Of course, you can follow the show on Twitter, at Ric Flair Show. And, of course, we're brought to you by at MLW. It's Major League Wrestling. It's the home for all the hot podcasts these days. Of course, MA Gateway on Twitter. That's Mid-Atlantic Gateway. And they're getting into the Hall of Heroes this weekend. Congratulations to Mr. Bourne and David. And then Jerome Fisher, VO, on Twitter. Always making us sound good. Jim, maybe not so much. Our apologies to Mr. And, of course, at 1FMC, stop giving your money away and start typing it in your browser, 1FMC.com. And we'd be remiss if we didn't give a plug for at Legacy Talent LLC. Rick, what do people need to know about the fine folks over there at Legacy Talent?
They need to know that at Legacy Talent, as I've said so many times, provides the opportunity for someone to build a brand, unlike any other brand. Through any slump, and I've said this several times, I've had in my career or in my personal life, the brand was always available to me. Melinda Morris Zanoni, a fabulous lawyer, a fabulous entertainment lawyer, one of the most established firms in the Southeast, not to mention the fact she has an office in Malibu. So all I can say is if you want to build a brand and you want to build your career and you want to get booked somewhere big time, make the call, 704-334-7727. I would give out her cell, but I don't even give that to Conrad.
Well, you did give me a good show this week, man. I appreciate you having me on. I'm looking forward to next week. It's the Ric Flair Show, brought to you by Major League Wrestling.
I'm off to New Jersey and Oklahoma this weekend, and I heard there's a rumor that you're off to Asheville. Is there any truth to that?
I'm off to Charlotte and maybe taking a little detour through Nashville. Looking forward to catching up with some old friends.
Not Nashville, Asheville.
Okay.
Is that something you want to tell me about?
Nope. I got nothing. So we'll see you next week, kids.
Oh, God, I keep seeing my 10 credit card coming to me in the mail. Oh, my God. I'm going to have one of those big cards. Oh, my God. I don't care what name it has on
it. Too much.
Wendy wants one, too.
MLW Radio is the place to go to binge on podcasts from the experts. Those who've been in the business at its highest levels and those with insight and stories that you can only get at MLW Radio Network. Out now. Dave Bautista stops by and talks WWE road stories, dream matches, and Guardians of the Galaxy 2 with MVP and Greeny on the new HPV Lounge. Tomorrow, Marty and Sarah love wrestling, and you will too as they discuss the happenings in wrestling and get frisky with Sexual Morrow. Then, This Friday, journey back to 1989 and go behind the scenes of the American Dream Dusty Rhodes jump to the WWF. What's the real story behind the polka dots? Find out on the premiere episode of Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard. Plus, much, much more. Subscribe to these shows for free. The world of MLW Radio never stops. Go to MLWradio.com and binge on pro wrestling talk from the experts now.
The world of MLW Radio never stops.